Hello, welcome to the Get Fit With Me, expanding your physical and mental fitness group. This group is for individuals who are ready to expand both their physical and mental fitness. In this group, we talk about three core categories. They're kind of our three pillars. They're going to be physical fitness, mental fitness, and then that last pillar or category of nutritional guidance and balance. I believe that we need all three of these in our life for us to be very well-rounded and healthy humans. So I like to incorporate all three of these categories into our live trainings. This week, we are focusing just on the nutritional guidance and balance area. And I'm going to be talking and sharing with you three of the most common reasons that we crave sugar and how we can fix that habit, or how we can kind of manipulate our diet so that we don't have that craving anymore. So if you are live on Facebook, let me know you are there by dropping #live, or if you are watching the replay, either on Saturday, Sunday, whenever you're watching this, drop #replay. This chat lives on, and as I ask questions throughout and we interact and we communicate, feel free to chime in and bring your own thoughts, concerns, questions, perspective in, so we can get a well-rounded conversation going. But before we get into that, I like to do introductions. And I want to know who you are, where you're from, and do you reach for sweets after meals or just all the time? Felisa, want to share with us?
Yes. Hi, I'm Felisa from Ann Arbor, and I reach for sweets all the time. Sweets are my weakness. Chocolate is my go-to. And as I thought about it, I definitely reach for them less after a well-balanced meal. But if I'm just kind of snacking and grazing throughout the day, I'm reaching for chocolate a lot.
I love that you've noticed that. Is that something that, I guess, where does your awareness come in? Has it more often that the awareness comes in? Was there a trigger that kind of caused you to start creating that awareness? Or was it something you kind of just came to on your own?
Definitely a habit that I've had since I was a kid. Like, we always had ice cream or cookies and sweets in the house. So I think it's something that like my mom did, or just was in our household, that I've carried over. And I've noticed the older I get, the more stressed I am. I will reach for a handful of M&Ms, or Dove chocolate is my major go-to weakness that I keep in the freezer. Yeah, and I'll just go for it. Like, stress situation, that's my go-to. But I think the more I've gone through some of this process with you, I've been more aware of how often I'm reaching for it.
Nice. Well, I love that you've had that awareness and that you can notice when you're grazing throughout the day, when it tends to, the craving starts to come up, or the action of wanting the sweets, versus when you're more balanced. And that is one of the things that you mentioned a few of the things we're going to talk about today more in depthly. So you're leading us right into the conversation. And we have Elena on live right now for the moment. I know she's getting her kids some lunch, so I know she'll be popping in and out. But before we get into the training, I'm going to kind of tell you guys how this came to be for me, and why this training kind of came up. First thing is, I was talking to a few people, and I found that this was common for so many women and men, that mostly females though, is what I found, that after we're done eating, we go straight and we need that sort of dessert, or we need a little bit of sweet sensation, whether it's fruit, or we need some chocolate or some raisins. We need something sweet. And then I got thinking too, I used to, when we would grow up, my favorite go-to when I got home from school or after dinner, my sister and I would melt chocolate in the microwave, and we'd grab the bag of pretzels, and we'd take the whole bag of pretzels and the big bowl of chocolate into the living room, and we'd dip the pretzels in the chocolate, and we would sit there and eat that. And there was no nutritional value to it, but it was so good. And it's something that we crave. We created a habit out of doing it almost every day, I felt like. Or we'd have the ice cream or the brownies, or I loved baking, so we'd have all the sweets in the house. And at a younger age, you don't have to worry about that as much. It ends up being something that, oh, it's the dessert or it's the nighttime snack. But as we've grown up, we've realized that sugar in our body is not always our best friend. And that if we overconsume the sugar and we lean into those old habits, it tends to be a little bit harder to break. So I'm going to go into the top 3 things that I hear on why people struggle with the sugar craving. Number 1 is it's out of habit. Lisa said it. I said it. It's out of a habit that we've created long term. And it's something that's going to be hard to break. And I'm going to go through a visualization with you guys later. But it's out of habit is the first most common reason. The second one is your meals are unbalanced. You are not having a carb, a fat, and a protein, or you're not having an equal balance of them. And I'm going to explain that a little bit later to what that means and how having way too much of one or not enough of one could also be the underlying issue. Number 3 is you are eating too fast. We probably all know of that person who is done eating right away before everyone else in the line at holidays even has their dinner and has sat down. And then we know that other person who is sitting there eating their dinner while all of us are on to desserts. We know we have people like that, and we don't always have to be the slowest eater, but we should never be the fastest eater. There is somewhere in the middle that we can be. So the top 3 reasons that I have found, and there are many, many more out there, but the most common are it's out of habit, our meals are unbalanced, or we are eating too fast. So what other kind of things come to mind for you? What other reasons can you think of on why you're having these sugar cravings? I know, Lisa, you said out of stress. That's one for you. What other things kind of come to mind?
Or even bored.
Boredom.
Not active. You're bored. Oh, let's go get a snack.
So more like emotional type of gravitation.
Right.
That's a big one too. Oh, there's so many reasons that we migrate towards food. Food is comfort for us. And sugar releases. So, I took the word for word down. But when we eat sugar, it produces a hormone in our body that gives us that satisfaction of comfort and just feeling calm and feeling secure. That is a thing. So no wonder that when we have these high stressed moments that we reach for that sugar because it helps bring us back to where we want, but it's not always the most healthy.
Absolutely.
Ooh, Elena said as a reward. A lot of times we use sugar as a reward. How often? If you finish your dinner, you can have dessert. Or if you go do this, you get this. We use food as a reward. That's a great one, Elena.
That's good. I do it all the time with the kids. Let's do this now. We're gonna go.
Right. And we don't, until these are pointed out, I don't even realize that I've said that to my nanny kids before. So I'm like, okay, as soon as you're done with your snack, then you can have the chocolate that you were wanting. Like, what? So let's move into how to change those 3 things. What can we do to implement? So I want you guys to think of a visualization here. I want you guys to think of a field that has never been walked in. The grass is nice and tall. It's nice and tall. It's completely untouched. So now, as a child, you start on these bad habits of having a dessert after each meal. And you start walking down the same path. Every single day you head to the field and you walk down the path. And what happens? The grass starts to separate and a trail is made. That is the way our brain is thinking. So every time we do an action over and over, our brain is creating a path from our thought to our action. So to break that habit, we have to create a new path. We have to let that old path grow back up and choose a different direction in that field. So Maybe that is, instead of going for the sweets, we go for a walk. Let's physically change that path by walking down a new path each and every day. Well, what will happen is that old habit will start to close up and it will look like nobody's ever walked down it. And that new pathway of this is what is happening, this is the action I'm taking, is going to create a new pathway. So that's what I want us to think about, is it's taken us so long for these old habits and these unhealthy habits, or these habits that we don't enjoy, to be engraved. We've created this path. It's taken years. It's taken day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year of walking in that field on the same path. It's going to take a while for us to switch the other path and start walking. What this is going to do, and how we're going to do this, is we are going to, when we start to feel that thought of, I need the craving, we make the acknowledgement, and we're going to figure out what can we do instead. And we're going to have actionables. And this is going to be our next activity, is we're going to make sure we have paper, and we're going to come up with things that you can do instead. So this is our normal habit. Let's go here. We're going to create a list of things that we can start building this way so that this side can grow up. Does that make sense? And if it doesn't, please let me know. Okay. So I want you guys to get out your piece of paper. If you guys have a notebook that you use, I always suggest having one full notebook, whether it's a spiral bound that you got for $1 or a penny at Meijer, or it's a nicer leather bound that is just for your health and wellness, for your meal preps, for your recording, for your reflections, your goals. Nothing else goes in it. What I want you to do is, at the top of a blank sheet of paper, or you can, if you don't want to waste a whole sheet, put a line, and I want you to write your instead of list. So the title is your instead of list, and we are going to create a list of things that you can do when our old actions and that old habit starts to creep in and that acknowledgement is made. So I've created a list of things, but I want your guys' ideas, because you guys have different ideas than I do, and we are all different. So actually, Jennifer and I were on, we were talking about this back during the Commitment to Your Health program, and we'd come up with a list like this for her. And she found it super helpful to just have the physical list in front of her for when she got to X spot where the candy was, or X spot where this was. She could see the list and she had a completely different, she could read it and say, nope, I'm going to go do this instead. She changed her habit. She changed her mindset right then and there. So some things that come to mind, or that I've created, are, Cheryl mentioned yesterday in the post, she said she brushes her teeth. After dinner, she goes and she brushes her teeth right away. None of us want to rebrush our teeth a second time in the night after we've had a snack. So I know I've done that. I also will throw in my retainers and my mouth guard sometimes, because I don't want to have to take those out to eat. Drink some water. Have your water bottle near you. See, are you actually hungry? A lot of times we're not letting our body process what has happened. So drinking some water helps us allow our body to take a breather and see, okay, am I hungry or am I not? If you need food and you need something sweet, opt for some real fruit. Somebody told me once, if you are not hungry enough to have an apple, you don't need to have it. I'm not sure how much I believe that, but think about, if you want something sweet, can something more natural satisfy that sweetness for you? Take a walk, get up, take a lap around the house, go for a walk outside. Maybe you're going to go jump on the treadmill for a couple minutes. Get away from the situation. Call your friend. Whenever we're on, it's a great time to get our mind away from that constant thought of, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. Remove yourself from that situation. So Belisa, is there anything that comes to mind for you that you've either done in the past, or you're like, oh, this comes to mind for me now?
So a few things that I wrote down, and I've done, I think most of these in the past I found they've started to be helpful. I said, take Maisie outside. So that's our dog who likes to keep coming out of my video. So take her outside, and I've made, like, in the snow, since it's been winter, a circle that when she's outside playing, I'll walk in the circle. So instead of just standing there, like kicking the ball to her, I found that if I can stay moving while I'm outside, that has helped me. So taking the dog out, drinking my water first. So see if I can chug some water. And if that satisfies the craving, I put down eat fruits or veggies. So trying to have them already cut up, or something easy to reach for those in the refrigerator. I put walk stairs so that I could run up and down the stairs a few times, see if that distracts me enough. And the brush teeth, I have done that multiple times at night when I'm done with dinner. I have my ice cream, if I'm going to have it, or something sweet like that, in the afternoon after lunch, so that I still have time to be more active. And then after dinner, to curb myself from eating, I brush my teeth.
I like that. I like that you said you bring, so if you know you're going to want a sweet in the day, because the one thing is, if we deprive ourselves from them, it's going to make our body want it. If anybody tells you no, you're going to want to do it. I don't care who you are. In some sort, you are going to want to do what you've been told you are not allowed to do. So by you saying, I know I'm going to want a sweet today, or if you wake up and you're like, that ice cream sounds good tonight, let's go get Culver's after dinner. Instead, you may go before dinner, like you said, so that you still have time to move around after, so that we're just not sitting right after we have that sweet. And maybe you wake up and you say, I'm going to have my sweet at lunch, and you end up not wanting it. And that's also okay, to not have to have it every day. But because you've given yourself permission to have it every day, allows for that. Yeah, I don't need it today. I'm not craving it. I don't need it. Because you've given yourself the permission. I love that. And I feel like in the past, we had created a list of like exercises you can do in the kitchen to distract you too. Did we do that? Like squats, push-ups? I feel like we created a list a while ago.
Yep. I was going to say, those are the two that came to mind, because I remember doing that in the kitchen. So yes.
Something else you can do is put a sticky note next to your either candy bowl or your pantry or wherever, maybe it's in the freezer, that says, why are you gravitating for this? Or pause. Use a word that is going to cause you to just stop, take a breath, acknowledge the reason you are moving forward, that you're grabbing that thing. Because it's that acknowledgement that gets passed over. We can defer ourselves to do something different all the time, but we still have to acknowledge why that is happening, or we will never get to the root with a problem. We'll never have it fixed. So these diversions are awesome as a great step. But as you're doing these diversions, think about, why was I wanting to have the chocolate? Why was I wanting to have the ice cream? Why did I gravitate towards it right away? Is it maybe just you need 2 minutes of sitting with your eyes closed and breathing? Maybe that's something that's going to get your mind off of it. Any other suggestions? Danielle and Elena, if you guys are still on Facebook, feel free to drop them in the comments. And if you guys come up with questions, drop them, or ask them along the way after each of these, and then we will do an end of the session questions like always. But let's move on to the unbalanced meals. So unbalanced meals, when I say balanced meals, I mean you have carbs, fat, and protein in all of your meals and snacks. You guys have heard me talk about this over and over, that I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but at some point it will click for each and every one of you at different points. When we talk about unbalanced meals, in this case though, it can mean two things. It can mean that you are consuming too many carbs compared to your fat and your protein. So the biggest example of this is any sort of pasta dish. How often are the noodles in that pasta dish huge, and the protein is tiny and the fat is tiny? What that's going to do is our body processes carbs very quickly. Remember, it's that first thing our body is going to process. Sugar is the same way. Sugar is a form of carbs. So we're going to process it very quickly. If we are sitting at dinner and we have a lot of pasta with very little protein and very little fat, and we get done, our body is going to crave more sugar. Our body loves the sugar. It is it's the fastest thing to go through our body. It's the fastest thing to give us energy, but it's also the fastest to make us crash. So we don't want to crash. So our body's going to keep craving that sugar after sugar to keep us level. Whereas if you were to have an equal portion of your carb, your fat, and your protein, you would be able to keep those blood sugar levels equal all day long, instead of those up and down spikes, which we've talked about. So this is also going to go on the other side though. So maybe you are someone who doesn't eat carbs, or you really, really limit them, because there are two spectrums to this. There's the people who eat a lot of carbs, and there's the people who don't eat any. Then there's the people in the middle. And maybe you're someone who doesn't eat a lot of carbs, and you're just eating a lot of fat and protein throughout the day, and you find yourself grabbing for just that one piece of chocolate to count as your carbs. You're just like, oh, I'm going to grab it here. I'm going to grab it here. Same concept. You are not giving your body the right amount of balance. So what is happening is you're coming here, your body's feeling good, and then you crash hard in that body right away, because it takes longer for our body to process that fat and that protein when we consume it. It wants that sugar to give us that first quick release, that jump start. And then we go down and we slowly work up, and then we crash hard. And so you can do two things here. You can do what you're doing, which is going to keep causing you to have that sugar craving by just eating your fat and your protein all day long, and just having that little bit of sugar here and there to help level your blood sugar levels. Or you can incorporate just a little bit more carbs throughout your day. I know if you're staying low carb or no carb at all, that's kind of stressing you out with me saying that, but it doesn't have to be a full serving. By giving your body some carbs throughout the day, it's going to help level your body out, which is going to allow for your body not to crave that sugar at the end of the day or after those meals, because you've given it what it wants. You've given it what it wants, and you are listening to it rather than choosing a different path that it doesn't want and that's not going to help you. Does that make sense? That's probably the more complicated one to kind of think about. Biggest thing here is make sure you have your carb, your fat, and your protein. And if you are someone who has not seen or heard me say this at all, drop new in the comments and I will tag you in the training where I talk about this. I've already done one. It will come back around because we're coming up on 1 year in this group and talk about it all the time. But if you want that training specifically, just drop new and I'll tag you in it. It's in the group already. Any questions? Elena, I just looked at the comments. She said, no. I like the idea of putting in your retainer. Yeah, I put in my retainer sometimes. What questions do you have, Felicia?
I think I need to make myself a list again, because I know we've talked about the carbs, fat, protein, and I think about it when I'm making my meals, but sometimes I feel like I need to make myself a list so that I have stuff to look at. Like sometimes maybe I think it is in the moment, but maybe it's not, or to think of some variation so it's not like the same thing over and over again. But I'm just a visual person. So as we're saying it, like I know I think about it, but I'm wondering if I could implement it better if I made a list for myself of like, this is typically, the food we have in our house, what category is that falling in? And then really making sure not just like my breakfast or my lunch, one meal a day, to better portion it throughout the day. Each of my meals and snacks are hitting each of those categories.
I love that. So you did the Commit to Your Health program. In your ebook, you have a sheet. And I believe it is called the Foods I Like, but you can use it for the same exact thing. It has your carb, your fat, your protein, your fruits, and your veggies. It has those boxes already there. So you can go through and you can put all of the fats that you like and keep in the house. And if there's any of them that you're like, I don't know what category this fits into, send me a message. There are some that kind of fall into weird categories, and I'm happy to clear any of those up. But that list is perfect because it's that visualization. It's that sticky note that says pause. Why are you reaching for the chocolate? We need to read it. That's why I have you guys pull out paper and keep a notebook and write things down instead of typing them on your phone or throwing them in the digital world of documents where it all gets lost. Oh, how do we know if we have enough meat when making a recipe? Example, if I make soup or something, I make cabbage soup with a bunch of veggies, 1 pound ground beef, and I wasn't sure if that was enough protein to balance out the veggies. Awesome question, Elena. So when you think you want about, I believe it's the size of your fist of protein, and I'd have to double check on that. I haven't done hand measurements in a while. So what I'm guessing is that in that soup, maybe for a lunch portion, that's going to be enough as long as you feel satisfied. But for a dinner portion, you're probably going to want a little bit more protein, because unless you're having something really hearty, when you kind of like when you make spaghetti, all that meat gets spread out through all the dish. So maybe adding double meat or adding double meat into the cabbage soup will just help balance that out. That is an awesome question though, because if we don't make chicken breasts or we don't make meatballs, if we don't make the meat separate, it's hard to see how much we're actually getting. So awesome question. Keep them coming. Number 3. You are eating too fast. This is something, I am a fast eater. If you're a fast eater, raise your hand or drop the hand emoji in the comments. I am somebody who eats very, very quickly. I am somebody who likes to inhale my food. And it's something that is a habit from my childhood. I've always been a fast eater. So I have trained myself, and it takes a while. Remember, these paths that we created are from our childhood or from years prior to where we are now. So it's going to take more than practicing and implementing these things just once or twice or even 100 times for it to stick and for that new path to form and that old path to grow back up. I am now, so Lisa's my aunt for any of you guys who don't know, and she can probably attest to only a couple years ago, I was always the first one in line at family gatherings, still classified myself as a kid, and by the time everybody else sat down, I was ready for seconds. That's who I was. I'm no longer that person. I now wait and I allow others to go first, which helps me have some control of, oh, I don't need to eat right away. So I get myself the plate, I sit down, and I make sure that I'm drinking my water throughout my meal. And that helps slow me down, because if after every few bites I take a sip of water, it forces you to put your utensils down, join in the conversation, and actually enjoy the flavors, the textures, the smells of the food we are having. So I'm going to say, pace yourself at a meal. How the heck do you pace yourself? Well, you can just do what I just said. You can make sure you have a drink with you. You can slow yourself down by making sure you're going to drink this whole drink throughout your meal. Something I've heard is put your utensils down after each bite. Okay, I'm not eating that slow. I'd like to finish my meal within an hour. But if that's what you have to do to make it work, do it. Something else that we do is we eat way too fast, meaning we chew our food very little and we swallow it. So if you just chew your food a little bit more, you're supposed to chew your food so it's like baby food in your mouth before you swallow. Very gross thing to think about if you think about chewing your food that much. But if you think about just chewing for 4 to 5 more seconds before you swallow, think of that time that's going to add on in that meal. If you're eating with others, sit next to someone who is a slower eater. You're going to end up picking up on some of their habits. And something else you can do is sit or be in conversation with someone. Try to avoid being in front of a screen where we go mindless. We completely get rid of the thought of our meal in front of us and we get into something else. We want to be fully aware and conscious of the meal that is in front of us. We have just spent 10, 20, 30, 3 hours making this beautiful, delicious meal that has flavors, textures, smells, all these amazing things to eat it in 7 minutes. It's Thanksgiving all over again. They spend all day cooking to eat it in a matter of 10 minutes. Or maybe you've gone up to this beautiful restaurant and you've ordered this awesome meal and you're paying a lot of money for it, or maybe you're paying a little money. You have money behind that, and all you're doing is scarfing it down. You are not going to enjoy it. So why is this important? Because I can ramble on about us eating too fast for a long time. Why this is important, though, is we eat food. It goes to our stomach. Our plate is empty. Our mind usually says, oh, go get more. You're still hungry. Our stomachs and our minds do not talk as quickly to each other as we'd like them to. It takes 20 to 30 minutes for our body to process the food, acknowledge what we've given it, and refer back to our brain and say, I am full or I am hungry. So this is where what I like to do, and this I found is most helpful for me when I eat too fast sometimes, is I get myself out of the kitchen. I don't do the dishes. I get myself out of the kitchen. I take my water and I go do something else. Takes me away from where I was so that I have time to think and my body actually has time to process the food that I'm eating rather than, oh, you need more. It's seconds. Everyone else is doing it. Oh, blah, blah, blah. No, you're giving your body time to actually listen and to talk back to you. Does that make sense? Elena says, I make my patients set down utensils between every bite when they have issues with swallowing and eating too fast. Interesting. When I was researching for today's training, the setting your utensils down between every bite is something new to me. But I'm glad it's not the first time people are telling people. So Elena, are you going to implement this at all because it's something you tell your patients, or are you going to try to implement one of these other tactics? Because I see you raised your hand as being a fast eater too. What types of questions do you guys have when it comes to the fast eating? What types of things come to mind that you could also do to help slow yourself down?
So the notes I made, so I don't think of myself as a fast eater. I am more of a talker. So a lot of times I would be one of the last ones because I was talking growing up or even now. But I wrote down to keep drinking throughout the meal. That's something when I was kind of thinking, I was like, I feel like I take a drink when I first start, and then it's like at the end of the meal instead of drinking it throughout. So that's kind of just something that helps keep, if I'm drinking my water intake up. But that's a good thing to be mindful of. And I said to enjoy it a little more instead of it just being food that I have to eat, like appreciate the food, the flavor and textures of it, that maybe I'll have that better appreciation of the meal instead of just thinking like, what desserts or sweets do I want later, but like find more enjoyment in your balanced meal.
I like that. The enjoyment of the meal, because food is forever going to be in our culture, that we need to find a way to enjoy it and really figure out what flavors do we like, because there are certain flavors out there that may trigger you to not want sweets.
Yes.
Maybe it's spicy. Maybe it's salty. There are flavors out there that make us not want sweets. Sweets make me want salty. So if I, after dinner, have a sweet, I then need to have a salty. So then it just ends up being a snack attack after dinner for no reason.
Yeah. It's something that popped into my mind, and I feel like we've talked about this, and I know I have with other family members. If you're eating a sweet, like say you're out at a party or something and you get a cookie or a cupcake, whatever, that we have this guilt feeling that we've taken it and now we have to eat it, even if we don't really enjoy it very well. And so I love that we've had the talk of like, if you really don't like it, then don't force yourself to eat it, because now you're just taking on those calories and you've lost all the enjoyment from it. Like, it's okay to go, no, this isn't what I thought it was, or it isn't good,
and you can throw it away and that's acceptable. Don't be wasteful, but like, don't force yourself to eat it.
Yes, exactly. And we did talk about this. It's that analogy of you can have cake and ice cream and not have to eat the whole piece of cake or the whole bowl of ice cream. You can have the 2 bites of ice cream and feel satisfied and maybe not even want the cake. If it is not going to bring you joy and satisfaction in the moment, there's no reason to have it, but it's the acknowledgement. And it goes back to that mental fitness part. Told you it's all connected, people, that it is all connected. So we have to make that acknowledgement. Well, is this good? Lisa makes a really good cheesecake. I don't even know what it is. It's like cheesecake crack. It's delicious. But if I were to have too big of a slice and halfway through, and I'm full and I'm feeling satisfied, I will put that back on. I'll throw it back in the fridge. You don't have to throw it out. And we feel like we offend people if we don't eat the whole thing. That's not the case. We are in control of our own body. And if they want to feel offended, you can have that conversation with them. And they may realize, I need to start doing that. Because it's a story that we tell ourselves that we're going to offend somebody. We don't know that until they tell us. That's an assumption we're making. And we all know what assuming does. So I love that you brought that up, Lisa, because you're right. With sweets, we feel like we have to eat the whole thing sometimes. And that's not the case. So I do have one disclaimer here, and I want to say this because you guys know how I am. I want you to be able to have a healthy life without having to give up the things you love. And cravings are not bad. Sweets bring us comfort. Told you that. Sweets are something that are forever going to be around. You're not going to be able to avoid them. And if you avoid them, it's going to make you want them more. So if you can create new pathways, if you can become aware and acknowledge the reasons, and maybe it's that habit you're trying to break. Maybe it's your meals are unbalanced. Maybe you're just eating way too fast. Maybe it's all 3. Figure out what the reason is and just start working on changing it. It's not saying that the change is going to eliminate it by any means, but it's just going to change your thought process around it in the habit that you have around it and the feelings. Because right now, probably all of us are feeling that craving is a bad feeling. We feel like reaching for that chocolate is a bad feeling in the moment because we shouldn't be. If you have a reason, and if it's your time of the month and you're feeling like, I need some food, I need some comfort food, acknowledge that that's the reason and still have it. It's not bad. It's in our lives. And the more you avoid it, the more you're going to end up binging and you're going to go through a spiral cycle. So that is my one disclaimer, that cravings are not bad. Just acknowledge them and understand why they are happening. That's what your journal is for. Write them down when they happen. You'll see a pattern. A lot of times it's stress. A lot of times it's boredom. Lots of times it's our emotions. But figuring out what emotions it is that bring it on. So we talked about 3 things today. Maybe it could be because you're a fast eater. Maybe it could be because your meals and snacks are unbalanced, or maybe it's because it's a habit. I would love for each of you to share which one you think it is, because we can't fix it all. Can't fix it all at once. Which one out of these 3 do you think it is the most prominent? And what type of action are you thinking about? What types of things are you going to implement to start creating that new path in the field so that you can be in control of the craving and not let it control you? And Felisa, while you're thinking, I'll read some of the comments in the chat to give you a second to. Lena said she definitely needs to set her utensils down. And I'm also slower if I'm eating when feeding my kids versus feeding them before I eat. Interesting. When I eat with my nanny kids, I eat way too fast. I'm done before they are very slow eaters, which is good. But I'm sitting there waiting for them. I've gone off, I got second food. So I love that when you eat with your kids, though, that you tend to eat slower. That's a good thing to acknowledge and know. So Lisa, how about you? What thing stands out to you and what action are you going to take?
So I would say the thing that jumped out is the habit one, just because I feel like that one's more dominant for me. That we always, I mean, I would say at least like 5 days out of the week, we had ice cream after dinner. Like that was kind of our go to. Or we'd make cookies every week or have a tray of brownies. So, kind of being a little bit more mindful of changing that habit, not having as much. Or I've done better of, instead of having the ice cream that I want to have, letting the kids pick their flavors, because if they pick ones that I don't particularly like, because I can't just not have it in the house, like it's just there has to be something, but I don't go to it as often because it's not as satisfying for me. So that has been a little bit more eye-opening. So yes, kind of being more mindful of creating those new paths. The old ones are there, but being mindful of changing and creating new ones. So I think that is something I'm gonna try and focus on. Be more aware of it.
And how are you going to be more aware? Because we can say we're going to be more aware of a lot of things, but what are we going to do? Is it something physical we're going to see? Is it something physical we're going to do? What is going to make that awareness actually come to the forefront, rather than, I said I'd be aware of that type of thing?
Yeah. Nope. I'm going to make, because I love sticky notes, I'm going to take my sticky note and put it right on the freezer, so that right when I open, that's the first thing I see to open. Say, like, is this something I really need? Or try to create the habit of more sporadic. And then my list of your instead of list, I'm going to have that around the house in multiple places, to try and, the new healthy habits instead of the go-to sweets.
And let's say on average you go to sweets 10 times in a day, just because 10 is a nice number to work with. Let's say this first week, every single day, you only go to it 8 times. You're doing 20% better than you were the day before. Think about that. Like, yes, it's still there. I've said it's going to be there. It's that line in the grass that has been paved day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. It's going to take a while till that new path is. But where were you last week? Where were you yesterday? And sometimes we may get to that 80% of changing and we may regress. So that's what happens. It's life of living a healthy, that's the journey of living a healthy life. But it's acknowledging that I went down that wrong path. I didn't do as well as I did yesterday. And tomorrow's a new day. Or the next time I go to the kitchen is a new moment. Mm-hmm. You don't have to wait till Monday to restart. Oh, this week was a crap. No, you can start the next time you walk into the kitchen. That just acknowledging those, and that it's not always going to be on that new path. It's going to go down that old path sometimes. It's just what it is. It's the easy path. It's the easy one. So when the dog's going to go down because they don't have to go through the grass, it's hard. What was your biggest takeaway from today?
I feel like it's something that you had just said, the idea of progress, like even small progress is progress. So I think sometimes I set myself up that, right, like if I'm going to say I'm not going to do it, now suddenly it's in my head of I'm not going to eat any sweets, or I'm only going to have one. Be like, no, I need to create realistic goals and expectations, and still have enjoyment in life and food. And so the idea of small progress is a good place to start. I think that's a good motivation I need this week.
Small progress adds up. A few weeks ago, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, we did the training was climb your way to the top. You cannot sprint to the top of a mountain. Small steps, step after step, step after step. And sometimes we have to come down and take a break, or sometimes we pause and take a break before we keep going up. It's exactly how our health is. Small steps over and over, that sometimes we have to pause and we plateau. Sometimes we have to go back and get something that we left and we regress, but we are always trying to get to the top, whether it's fast or slow. Slower is usually better. Things stick when we go slow. When we do something fast, you usually cycle back into old habits. Awesome takeaway today. Elena said, maybe it's because I have to stop to constantly prep stuff for Hugh. I can't give him a plate of food or he will choke because he's still learning and shovels it in. Oh, I think all kids do that. And then most prominent for me is that it's a habit action. Try to do something else, go for a walk, give the kids an activity instead of a treat after dinner. I like that you're going to incorporate this into with your kids. Walk away from the kitchen, eat fruit, drink tea. Elena, those are awesome. And if you can drop your takeaway in the comments as well, that would be great. And so a few things here before we wrap up. First thing, if you are not part of the email list, either shoot me a private message of your email or drop it here in the comments and you will be added to the email list. This February, there's a lot of cool things coming out as freebies. So if you want access to any of those freebies, they're coming through the email. So check your emails, actually check them so you can have access to them. This past Monday we did a free recipe book. So make sure you're going through your emails, and if you're on the email list, send me a message of your email or drop it in the comments here. Second thing is, if you are struggling to stay on top of some of these habits, you just want some extra guidance, and you want to learn about the accountability membership that I have that is all ladies and all about staying and taking small steps, step after step, and being there to support one another. Just drop accountability in the comments and I'll reach out to you and we'll talk some more of those details. But let's wrap up for today. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Thursday, and I will see you next week for our movement workshop. And hold on, is next week the week? No, okay, in 2 weeks is the 1 year anniversary of this Facebook group. So be expecting some big things here in the next couple weeks. That's why there's some cool freebies coming this month. This is freebie month. So I will see you guys all next week. Enjoy the rest of your day.